All right, welcome to the Be Honest Man podcast, a discussion among men of various perspectives on the subjects from the taboo to the typical. This is episode 19. So, guys, how you been doing this week?
It's been a good week. I've stayed busy. Had a good day. I went and did my lieutenant's assessment. Felt like that went well. And then I decided to just take a day to kind of be with myself and just kind of go do things. I went and got some brunch, I guess, some late breakfast, and then walked around the city and went to a big art museum and walked around there and went and decided to go to the gym randomly. It wasn't necessarily a workout day, but I felt like doing it, so I went and did that, and just kind of, felt pretty productive. Felt pretty good.
There you go. A little self-care day.
Yes.
That's nice.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we've started decorating for Christmas.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, I'm not totally excited about it because I don't believe in skipping Thanksgiving, but it is what it is.
Amen, brother.
Well,
Thanksgiving's just too important.
They
but
can
do
coexist.
you decorate for
No.
Thanksgiving though? Like you don't.
No, you don't.
But you'd
decorate
rather
for
just like
Thanksgiving.
it's a plain period between Halloween
Yeah,
and
I don't want us
post-Thanksgiving.
to just ignore Thanksgiving.
What are you
I'm not
ignoring
ignoring
it
it.
by just having?
But here's what you do: you
Christmas
take down
decorations?
the skeletons, you leave up the gourds, and then you're good to go. And then you can just transition from Thanksgiving on to Christmas. You put the gourds away.
No,
Yeah,
you put the
we
lights
put
on
apart
the
two
boards.
little Christmas trees. Mika's upstairs right now painting some nutcrackers.
Okay.
You making
Yeah,
them
so
from
we're-
scratch?
No, she bought them from the craft store, and it's just like a wood carving of the Nutcracker. Just
Oh, you
like
can paint 'em
wood,
kinda like however you want.
So you just paint it however you want it.
Well, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, so
Hey.
she's doing that.
I just imagine Chris
Yeah,
whittling. Yeah, we were just talking about Greg. I just imagine Chris like whittling a little nutcracker and then like coming to record the podcast. Say, here, paint this. I got stuff to do.
Hey, Mika is very crafty. She built her
Yeah.
entertainment center, man. She may be building a nutcracker. I wouldn't put it past her.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, why
With a
aren't you
chainsaw.
painting one if you got two? Like why? Like you paint one, she paints one. It's like building a gingerbread house together.
Or
I'm not
carving
painting a
jack-o'-lanterns.
Nutcracker.
He just says, I'm not painting a nutcracker. Okay, I just thought it was an
Why?
idea, something for you to do together.
We put up our Christmas trees together.
Okay.
Well, you have more than one.
We didn't get any full size ones. We got two like 3-4 foot ones.
Okay.
So we put one up downstairs, one up upstairs, and we have to like build barriers around them so the cats can't get to them.
How bad is it that I'm so traumatized that when you said 2, like 3, 4 foot ones? So in my head I was like, somebody's about to make some comment saying like, oh, like stupid Christmas trees or something. Like I was so ready for that like it
I wasn't
just
even
No one
thinking
went.
about it.
Yeah, no one went there. That's a complex issue.
no, it's because you mother effers always say something. So yeah, if it's a complex, it's when you guys created. All right.
We're actually kind of bummed. Like when Jessica was working in retail, we would delay Christmas until after Thanksgiving because she was already sick of Christmas at that point. And then when she stopped and she was just in school full time, like she was like, I can actually enjoy Christmas now. This is great. So then we were putting our stuff out like right after Halloween, like the first week of November, like it's Christmas time. But then with the cat, like, so there's a lot of stuff that kind of ties in with our cat, and our cat passed a couple months ago. So we have like little ornaments with her paw prints and things like that. And so she's kind of dreading doing that. But also like the cat was a menace to society and all things holy and would like climb in the tree and like has knocked it down and shit before. So like there's so much like that, like, I don't know, that ties in, just gonna remind her of it, so she's kind of dreading doing it. Probably do it soon, but
Understandable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always do. We do ours after Black Friday, or what we do ours on Black Friday. So after Thanksgiving is done, because usually we're hosting and we don't have the space for anything else. But usually after that, I go ahead and start putting up Christmas trees, the lights, pulling out all the decorations, and yeah. So what about you, Steven?
I might put a tree up just like right there or something like that. Just a
There
little,
you go.
I mean, I have
The
like a
annual
full-size
stream tree.
Yeah, the annual stream tree. I put fake presents underneath it, like literally just boxes with wrapping paper, and I stick them under.
Do you wrap them?
Yeah, I did.
So they
I
look
did,
really
yeah.
bad.
No, they look fine. I can face them whichever way I want towards the thing. So if I just lay it so it's all flat on the front and then just bundle it in the back, they don't see that. So
I'm an infamous Tootsie Roll wrapper. Like I'll tape like a couple, like the put it in there, fold it over, and then just twist the ends and tape them.
mhm. Yeah, no, I think I did a pretty good job on these. I'm pretty sure I stored them. Like I have them in the closet so I can pull them back out and reuse them. But
There
other
you
than
go.
so that's future stuff. This week, nothing really out of the ordinary. Pretty normal stuff. I've started to get back in the gym a little bit more. I'm still not doing really anything with the shoulder, but just in general, like I've gone in and done some stuff, which just felt good to be exercising again and not feeling like I'm whittling away. But other than that, no, this is a week that isn't too different for me. So
Yeah, so for me, been doing this bathroom renovation. Got everything pretty much done. Got the sink in, got the mirror up, light fixture up. Painting is done. New piping all underneath the bathroom sink, and now I'm working on the flooring, which I dread to do, but it's gonna have to get done. So that's my next thing here, and hopefully I can wrap that up this week and be done with it.
Nice. Well, remember when you were telling me that, like, I needed to be prepared to go get more stuff when I was putting my sink in?
Oh yes.
Now, you weren't 100% correct, but you weren't 100% wrong. So I don't need any more things. The problem is that the guy that put it in before had the drain, the actual PVC drain pipe come up so high that you cannot take the like the set I got has like the drain, like the little plunger and everything,
Yeah.
which has its own plastic sleeve that goes into the PVC pipe. Well, I'm guessing they put that in and then put the PVC pipe up, so it's so high up that you can't remove the plunger. So I have to cut a
Nice.
section out of it and like re-weld it. It's gonna be a thing, but I just wanted to let you know that like you were right. It's not going to go smooth.
Never does. When I had to do ours, I had to cut the PVC pipe off that comes out of the main house. I had to cut that and then use PVC primer and plastic weld to put a new pipe on
Yeah.
to run the P trap up to the pipe. Yeah, I learned a lot of things and a lot of terminology. I feel like I'm ready.
You
to
sound
go
like an
work.
expert.
Yeah, right. I'm ready to go work in some home repair stuff.
we'll see
But-
you at Home Depot. Telling
That's-
people stuff, just letting them know instructions.
That's it, man. Oh, I see him
So-
pick up something and I'm like, hey, you know what you're doing with that?
Yeah. So now
Like, I don't
when
work
we
here.
say-
I just want to help you.
when we say Andy's laying pipe, like he's legit. Like he's actually doing plumbing.
I don't think I've ever said that, but
I say it all the time. It's actually a pretty common phrase in my repertoire.
It's a household phrase, man.
Did we I'm sorry. Did we say what the episode was, or did we just say 19
No.
and then jump into this? Oh, okay.
This is episode 19. Yeah.
That's
all
So
you
we
need
can
to
jump
know.
into that right now. We are talking today about self-realization and all things dealing with that. So we'll start off with the definition as we always do. Self-realization is an expression used in Western psychology, philosophy, and spirituality, and in Indian religions. In the Western understanding, it is the fulfillment of oneself, of the possibilities of one's character or personality. So pretty much becoming all that you can be, all of your potential is essentially what this is, or at least my understanding of it. So at that point, let's ask you guys, what do you guys think self-realization, what does that mean to you?
Well, I can say I might have come into this thinking it was something different. So I read that as like a self-realization is like by that definition is like the coming to, right? Like living up to
Your expectations. of
your
yourself.
all, yeah, whatever. Whereas I thought it was like self-aware. Like that's what I planned
No.
to talk about that today. So this should be fun because I thought it was like self-realization, like realizing your faults, realizing your strengths, realizing those things about you that, so this should be fun. We're just gonna,
Well,
know.
so
yeah,
this
I was
was-
on that same path. So
Were you?
All right,
I was
so
gonna say
we're
these
pretty
are Chris's
split on this.
ideas, so we're all just. I mean, we all just had a different idea. See, that's the first thing.
Very
Self-realization is
perspective.
very different to
we all realize we're dumb.
That's why we
Well,
start off
you
with
do.
definitions.
Me and Indy
Yeah.
are right. You guys are dumb.
Well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I mean, I feel like we'll get to touch on both in this. So,
Yeah.
we'll have it.
Yeah, one leads to the other, for sure. So Chris, what are your ideas on that? On what the
Well,
meaning
like
of this?
I like Steven was saying, I was looking at it from the perspective of, hey, kind of realizing who you are and what you have and what you can and can't do. So that's the kind of scope that I was looking at it.
Okay. Sean?
Well, so I put together a lot of our running show, and so most of this conversation, these questions are steered by my perception of the meaning of self-realization.
We'll get through it.
Yeah. So, like, to me, it's kind of like that fulfillment of potential, kind of like Andy said, where like it's your idea of like, I won't say perfect self, but I guess as close as you can get to that, like where you feel like you've made it. You know what I mean? And we'll get more into like the specifics of that, but that's kind of my own interpretation.
Okay.
What about yours, Indy?
Definitely it's like I said, becoming of your full potential, doing the max of what you are, what's expected of you, and your place in the world as a whole. Just just fulfilling your all of what you should be and all you can be. Just being the utmost version of yourself. All right. So do you feel like self-realization is based around values, um, ethics, goals, money, or some other metric?
I think
I think
goals.
yeah.
Yeah, because for instance, like for me, self-realization, like the thing that I want most from like the definition that you guys are talking about, like, living up to your potential. Like ultimately, it's just to be happier, right? And as long as like your happiness is brought about by like being a decent human being and stuff like that, the rest falls into place. When they say like money doesn't make you happy, right? Because money's in that sort of list. It may not directly make you happy, but it removes stress, right? Like if you don't have to worry about if something happens that you can't pay for it, or going to the doctor, now you're avoiding it and stuff like that. So I think that plays into it. So I think ultimately it's goals. The goal is to like be happier and stuff. So
Yeah, I think that plays into it. I think values, at least in my interpretation of it. And I guess it depends on how philosophical you want to approach it, or how you view kind of your potential. I think just this fulfillment of kind of the end goal of your values. Like if you have these values, like I'm this type of person, like this is the type of person I want to be, and you're able to be that person to your fullest extent. That realization that like I am the person I dreamed of being, at least from a moral and value based standpoint. That's kind of how I measure it. Like, because there's lots of things that I hold as a value that I don't always stick to. Like so to me, it's kind of like when you have this vision of yourself. And for me, some people it can be money. Like some people's ultimate vision for themselves is some sort of wealth based thing, or like Steven said, like a goal. Like these are the things I would like to achieve, and when I achieve them, I feel like I've kind of more self realized. For me, I think it's more of like just who I am as a person. That's kind of the end goal.
but you would want that person to be happy, yeah?
Yeah, and so like I'm not saying that like all those other things don't matter. Like my values may include happiness and having that as an important thing in my life.
Yeah, I just wanted that part to be clear. I mean, if somebody's listening, they're like, oh, okay. So like it's okay to be like, starving and homeless and whatever, as long as I stick to my values. If I feel
Hey
like a
man,
good person, but
if
like,
that's what they're in, if they're like a ascetic monk or something, then that's their end goal is to be able to sustain on like a couple grains of rice a day. Then hey,
And there is also the aspect, with the definition, it talked about there's a spiritual version of this as well as
yeah,
psychological. So the spiritual aspect of that has a whole different a set of, I guess, motivations. So that's also another thing to think about when it comes to that.
Yeah, because I know like specifically for like the religions we're talking about here, it's the whole endpoint is to be like closer to God. So that's a big part of that for like religious wise.
yeah. Well,
So
it
I
kind of
think
goes into that next point. do you see it as an end goal viewed similarly in a way of enlightenment, or like a progressive effect with the possibility of multiple events of self-realization or changes in realization? So like enlightenment, this kind of like, pulling back the veil of the world and just kind of seeing everything as it is. Or like Chris said, in some religions, deistic religions, and just coming, close to God and knowing God in your heart and things like that. Like this ultimate form of your religion or your faith. It's kind of like that's the end. That's the end. Like, is there really anything beyond that? You know what I mean? Like in your religion, there may not be. Like that once you've hit that point, like you've won the game. But there's also that flip side of where there's the, obviously if you don't have like a specific end game, like if it's like if mine's value based and I hit that at some point, do I feel like I'm just done? I don't have to practice being a better human anymore. Like I've kind of the idea I set for myself 20 years ago, I
Would be
finally
to
achieved,
maintain
and
it,
now I'm
right?
good.
In that
Yeah,
situation.
you got to maintain it, but like everything is gonna, to me, I have changed every couple months. I change as a person, so like my ideas of myself and what I want from myself are always going to change. So for me, it's more of a progressive thing with multiple events, and it's going to change. My idea of my self awareness, like 5 years ago, I probably thought I knew myself very well, and I realize now that I had no idea what I didn't even have an inkling of who I was. So like today, I'm like I know myself a little better, but I know myself enough to know that I don't owe myself that much. So like I know that as time goes on, like I'll learn more and more, and that I don't believe that there'll ever be a full self realization where I'll feel like I have finally figured everything out. But I think it's a nice goal to have,
Well, that
and it's
goes to
always going to change.
the
So I did look
self-awareness
at
part that we
yeah.
thought we were talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
see, I did look up this a little bit further, and so on the spiritual side of that, I found this website, and it's talking about the spiritual self realization, and there are 9 stages according to this site of self realization on the spiritual side. The first step is self awareness, so that is the part of knowing who you are, knowing your flaws and those types of things. Self exploration is number 2. Self discovery is number 3. Self understanding, number 4. Self love is number 5. Self transformation, number 6. Self mastery, number 7. Self transcendence is number 8. And self realization being step 9. So it's on the spiritual aspect of it, it looks like it's a lot of figuring out who you are, knowing your base point, learning about yourself, learning to understand and live with yourself for your flaws, and then overcoming those flaws, getting better, and then going beyond who you thought you could be, and then finally you're coming into you as a person.
I mean, I think that applies to everything, not even the spiritual side.
Yeah, well,
it's
that's
kind
where
of the same.
when it was you were talking about the self-realization and like not fully ever knowing yourself and all that. I don't think self-realization is enlightenment, because enlightenment to me is like the finish line, and that's just my interpretation. It might not be, but that's like a goal, like a set goal of like that's it, you reach enlightenment or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, like I feel like there's always the next step and there's always the next level and adjustments to be made. So I feel like it's progress. And I think that's why stuff like that is important, is because I have always been a proponent of like when you stop trying to progress, you die. And, we have the whole when people retire, they die at a more rapid pace, right? Like things like that, because you stop, unless they pick up a goal, unless they pick up some project that they're working on. When you wake up every day and you have nothing to drive you forward, like that's it. And that thing to drive you forward can be you. Like it can be, I want to improve myself in this regard. I want to be better about this, or a better human in these ways. And like make yourself your project, and you'll never have to look for another one. I just made that up. It's kind of cool.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Put it on a
Quotable,
t-shirt.
highly quotable.
Put it on a t-shirt. Yeah, so self-awareness, it seems like it's just understanding yourself from an ego standpoint and how you interact with the world and your place in it. So
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
I think something else that helps with this, going to the point that Chris and I thought we were talking about with this, is to figure out what your potential is and all that. Like, you need to be self-aware. Like, you
Yeah.
need to kind of know those things and the most honest way you can. And that's difficult, right? Because we do have our own perception of the world and how we are in it, and it could be drastically different from how other people see you in it and things like that. Because I know there are things that people feel about me that I truly do not feel about myself, and vice versa. So there are plenty of people out there who, for instance, Greg, and shoot, probably some of you, that consider me to be like super arrogant or whatever. But I don't view myself that way. And that can be part of arrogance, that can be whatever it is, but it's also where like, and I felt this way a lot with like trying to be self-aware of those sorts of things, is no matter how many times I point out or accept or will give credit when I am incorrect on something, you will never get credit for that. You will only be called out for when you stand your ground and you think you're right on something. No matter how many times I go, oh, actually, no, you're right. I was wrong about that. That's my bad. It will never be brought up by anybody ever. And I just have to accept that as me. They will ignore that, and they will only bring up the times that I knew everything, quote unquote, that I was always right, but never the times that I willingly said, like, I'm wrong on this subject.
That's
And so,
human nature as a whole.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
everything.
There's a quote out there where a math teacher was going down the multiplication tables of 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, and then they got down to 9 times 9 is 99, and everybody laughed in the classroom. The teacher was teaching, and the teacher was like, "You guys see that? Not a person said anything when I got all the rest of them correct, but the minute I made a mistake, everybody busted out laughing, and it was a big thing." And he was pointing out the human flaw. Like
Yeah.
we will never accept things that are good. We jump on the flaws though. We jump
Yeah.
on them, and they stick out. Like you can remember every bad thing's probably happened to you in your life, but those good memories just kind of fade.
yeah,
A lot of them just fade.
Well,
No.
so it's kind of funny. I think we just have a habit like of never wanting. I don't know. It's like we've developed. Maybe it's a Western thing of just not being nice. You know what I mean? On the basic level, right? Like not recognizing when people do good things, but only recognizing when people do bad things. Like we all know, like when people are doing good things. Like if Steven's developed a reputation for being arrogant and he steps down and says, you know what, I was wrong, you're right on this one, whatever, like I recognize, as a person, I say, that's big of him to do that. But it's less likely for someone to give him that feedback that, hey man, that was big of you, than it is if he was just like, no, you're wrong. They're gonna be like, look, you're always like this. Like they're going to have feedback on that. Even though we know that it's just one of those things. Like everybody I think everybody can recognize and see, unless they come in with their own bias, right? Like if
which I
someone's
think most people
expecting,
do.
yeah,
which
if
is
someone's
part of
expecting
self-awareness
someone to
on their
act a
own.
certain way, then they're going to ignore anything good you did. But if they don't, then they may see it and just not say it. Like say in my field of work, like there's the old school mentality, and it's still prevailing mentality. I'm not saying it's a wrong mentality. It's like, look, okay, you saved someone. Okay, you did a big thing and it was a positive effect. Okay, that's your job. Like you don't need a pat on the back. You don't need an award. You don't need you just did your job. Like it's what you trained to do. Like you're expected to do that every day. But and everybody knows it's the right thing to do, but the idea is not to get credit for it. Now that's changed a lot. And something that doesn't have quite as much to do with this per se, but I think it's telling on kind of how we talk about society as a whole. It's about the Spartans. And there was a game, something going on at like some big event, like a Coliseum type event. And there was an old man walking around looking for a seat. And he's walking through this crowd of Greeks, and no one is moving to give him a seat. Everyone's just jeering at him and just calling him out, whatever. And he goes over to the Spartans and immediately all the Spartans younger than him and some older than him get up and offer him a seat. And the crowd starts cheering. They're like, wow, that was really big of them. And he said, the guy turned to the crowd and he sighed and he said, all Greeks know what the right thing to do is, but only the Spartans will do it. And I was like, that's kind of a good thing to aspire to. Like there's plenty of times where we're in a situation where we're like, man, someone should give up their seat for that, old lady or something, or like, hey, someone should hold the door for them. We may not be in the right position to do it, or like there might be someone between us or something like that, but it's not really an excuse, If you see the right thing to do, just do it. Don't wait and expect for other people to do it, and definitely don't make any comments when they don't because you didn't. Just do the thing.
It's the shopping cart theory.
Yeah.
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 I will push a shopping cart all the way back to the building from the far
Absolutely.
reaches of the
I do it all the time.
barren
Yeah.
wastes.
Yeah.
I also do that.
Yeah. We're just
Like,
good
I've-
people, you know?
I mean, like
Yeah.
comparatively,
We're Spartans.
Virginia to here now, it's terrible. There's hearts everywhere in every parking lot,
Chaos.
just
Yeah.
covering
No,
the parking spots. It fucking.
I will say it's
infuriates
funny.
me.
I did see a meme that kind of ties into that whole thing where it said that people on the West Coast pretend to be nice but really aren't, and then people on the East Coast act like they aren't nice but they really are. Like they'll give you crap for it. They'll talk about you, but they'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
People on the West Coast still pretend like they're going to help you, but they won't.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
some
pretty
people
funny.
are just like way more like solitary, like they're just not about that life or whatever. But it was a point I wanted to make when Sean was talking about that stuff, and I'm hoping it's going to come back to me as I stall by saying this, and it's not really doing it right now. That's unfortunate. There was a solid point that I wanted to make about people. I think it was recognizing. Oh wait, what was it? It was recognized here. If somebody else has something to say, go ahead. I'm gonna try to think about what it was. Oh no, taking people's actions as separate things, right? So for instance, being able to recognize even if somebody has a tendency that approaching each interaction as its own thing. And it doesn't mean that you ignore everything they've ever done ever, but it's also being willing to look at something in an unbiased way or to give credit where it's due. And I think this is something that sucks with a lot of big people. And again, these are not necessarily people I support. These are not whatever, but people who get a lot of crap. Like let's think of even recently. You hear people like Andrew Tate. I think most people who, if they actually step back and they listen, they try not to be unbiased, there are good nuggets. That doesn't make him a good person. That doesn't make whatever, but there are good things you can pull from that. But people won't, and they will trash it no matter what because of the overarching thing, which I'm not saying you have to like him, but that doesn't mean you also can't say, but that was actually a good idea. We still shouldn't let him out, but like that was a good idea. That happens to a lot of people because there are people who are too extreme. Doesn't mean they never had a good idea in their life, right?
Yeah.
And being able to separate those things and acknowledge something while still saying, that's a good idea, we're going to take that, but you can keep the rest of your negativity and the rest of your bad stuff. Like, I think that's something that we just need more of in general. Because sometimes, I mean, you see villains and things, and I feel like, hasn't there been a lot more movies recently where people have been like, I kind of understand the villain's point of view. Like I kind of get that.
Don't get started on that. Andy's a big Thanos was right guy.
So,
yeah, Thanos
like you
had
get
a
that
point.
where people have like that sort of maybe they're, and so it's like, okay, so take that good part and just don't execute it the way that they did it.
There you go.
And like those sorts of things, I think is just being better people, and I think we'd see more progress in that. Instead of just being like, oh no, since I classify you as X, I can't pick a part of it because you're on that side, you're in that whatever. I actually have to now take the counterpoint to you instead.
I will say that this happens a lot with, I just got off work, so I'm bringing work into this, but this happens a lot with work, and it happens a lot with, as a manager, I deal with interviews. And we discussed, I had to do like a CBL, which is computer-based learning for those who are not in that corporate situation. And they were talking about bias, conscious bias and unconscious bias, and how we perceive things based on recent interactions. And we just classify things. That's how our brain works. We're easily going to group this thing. So my brain can figure it out easily. This goes in this cup. This goes in this cup. And it is what it is. And I classify everybody I see or has an interaction that's slightly close to that goes into that cup. But you're 100% correct on that, and it happens a lot at work. We don't recognize people for things because of that person's always doing that. They're always a bad person. They're always an angry person, and when they do something good, they don't really recognize it. So people are recognizing that we are the way we are, and they're trying to change that. So it's going to take a lot of time. But even with politics, and you're talking about the bias, conscious and unconscious, and just those things, I never look at any one politician or any one side and go, oh, that's the right side, or that's the left side, and that's the good side, and that's the bad side. Nobody has it all figured out, and there are good points on every side.
Yeah.
I'm not going to necessarily be the devil's advocate, but I'm going to say that, like, just because someone has a good idea doesn't mean I have to praise them for that idea. It doesn't mean that I have to be against it based on that alone.
And that's my argument.
Personally, there are plenty of figures, philosophers, other things who I think are just shitty people. I don't know much about the Tate fella, other than pretty much everybody that I know and respect thinks he's a piece of shit. So that's fair. Even if he has a good idea, I'm sure it's not unique. You know what I mean? Like a broken clock is right twice a day. You know, there's plenty of, I could be a completely incoherent and just horrible person, but I could still say some things that are true. Doesn't mean they're unique, that I have to be praised.
Well, yeah, that's exactly, and that's what my point isn't to praise and be like, yeah, dude, he's freaking right. It's acknowledgement. That's all. Just recognizing it as a person to be like.
If I'm having an argument with the guy, and you know we're discussing something, and he says something, I was like, no, you got a good point there. That's one thing, but I'm not going to go out and, like, no one should have to go out of the way and, like, for the sake of appeasement and making all sides equal, like, be like, I know Andrew Tate's a bad guy, but this one time he said something that was, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know. I get it. I'm definitely not the type of person that's going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, I'm all for having conversation and discussion and all this sort of thing. I hate the idea.
Unless it's with me.
I hate the idea that, how do I put this? That like, it's like this idea that all sides have good points. I don't believe that. I mean, I think at a certain point, like, you kind of get it. It's like a point value, right? Like, at some point, you're just going to be so much into the strength category, you're just a bruiser, bro. Like, you're not going to you could be like, I think this one spell would be a good idea, but no one's going to trust you for it. Like, it's just not your category. It's not your thing. And it's like when you've got some of the most horrific stances on human rights and all these things, and you're like, you say one thing that's like, okay, that's a good idea. That's not a redeeming quality. You're still just a shitty human being to me, and I don't care how right you are. Like, you hold no credit.
Which is exactly what I said.
I don't think we're trying to say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
like,
saying that because you do one thing right, that everything else goes out the window. And that was never the point. It was just saying, hey, you can acknowledge. Yeah,
I don't like you. I still think
exactly.
you're a terrible person. But
acknowledging somebody's terrible, acknowledging somebody has a good point at the same time. Not blocking them out
being
completely.
Able to do that. That's all. Yeah. Not even that you have to act on it. Now that you have to praise it, but being able to look at something and take away the bias or the hatred towards that person to recognize something internally. Right? If I'm arguing with you and you make a good point, but I'm mad at you and I'm arguing or whatever, even if I don't, like, look at you and say, well, Sean, that was a good point. You don't make those often. I can still, wow, dude. I can still inside be like,
I get what you're saying.
I accept that. I like that.
And I understand that. Believe me, like, this is something that I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who I highly dislike, but I've made it work. But also with a lot of the people I deal with, you know, patients, and I've dealt with some really, really sketchy, awful people in my field, and I've still had to treat them like human beings, and, you know, tend to their illnesses and their wounds and all these other things. So I understand it. You know what I mean? Like, it could be tough, you know, to be able to sit down and talk with someone and have that debate or conversation or whatever, like, and actually say, okay, I get that. You know, that's a good point. Whatever.
See, for me, it pisses me off more when that happens. Because if I'm talking to someone and if you're a shit person and you have shit ideals and shit views, and you say something and, like, you know what, good for you, you figured something out. It pisses me off because it makes me think, why can't you use that same energy to make the rest of you a good person? Like, why is that one finger the best part of you?
Well,
I'm with you on that.
I feel like part of it is also, and I mean, this is a hard thing to get around, and it's something we all suffer from, is we always think our ways, for the most part, are the right ways. And it's the idea that everybody is a villain, right? That kind of messes things up. Because, I mean, we'll just keep it really simple and something that's understood as politics, right? And the idea that, like, there's the right wing and the left wing, the Democrats, the Republicans, whatever. And it's not just that there are other people with different thoughts, they're the enemy. Right. And I understand to some people, they literally feel that, right? Like people truly felt like Trump was a danger. Like they felt unsafe with him being in that situation. Right. This is a stance.
Hold your tongue, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that he's no. I'm saying this is how people felt. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that people literally felt this way. And the thing is, they don't just think about it in those situations where, like, it may actually be dangerous and it's just that person feels different about, like, one thing. We're not talking human rights. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about basics like taxes or something. And they're like, that's the effing enemy. They're another person with a different thought. They don't think they're doing the wrong thing. They think they're doing the right thing. You don't think you're doing the wrong thing. You think you're doing the right thing, right? But instead of like actually accepting that and be like, you're not trying to do the wrong thing. Let's like, maybe we meet in the middle. Again, I know this is hard, but we don't even try to do that anymore. I feel like, right? We don't because we won't realize that. All we do is just go, nope, I'm on this side. So like, you're a bad human being and you're a villain.
Well, politics has become team sports. Also, the thing to understand is this is not a new thing. This has been going on since politics existed.
Sure.
It's just the way things are.
I would argue that it's been more dramatized.
It's been tumultuous.
It's been
thrown more. It is more visible to you now than it has ever been in the history of mankind. And that is
which is a major shift.
Yeah, that it seems like it's like things are the worst they've ever been. It's like, well, it's not. It's just you see more of it than you did before. So things have always. I'm gonna make another Spartan reference. There was a king, and someone had an advisor, an elder, and told him. He said, these times are awful. Just morals are out of whack. Morale is low. It's just everything's topsy turvy. And the king said something like, my dad had said that everything in his time was just awful, and society was going down the crapper, and everything was topsy turvy. And he told me that his father had told him that society was all going down the crapper and everything was topsy turvy. So he said, either everything's falling apart, or this is just the way things are, and it could possibly get better, or it's getting worse. Like it was just like this really kind of funny way of just like looking at it. It's like we every generation we look at the world and we're like, this is the worst it's ever been. The whole world's going to collapse around us and our kids will never see the light of day. And then when they get our age, they feel the same way. And then when their kids get the same way, and our fathers and our forefathers and our forefathers all felt the same way.
Well, it's
yet Y2K.
Yeah, well, the interesting part is we say things like that today, and we have in relatively recent history. There were world wars and a Holocaust, and we're like, this is the worst the world's ever been. It's like, no, half the world was bombing each other.
World War I was the war to end all wars.
Yeah.
And then World War II was the war to end all wars.
Yeah, and it's like, this is the worst it's ever been. It's like, dude, I mean, we got some problems, but like...
Well, it's part of, humans' grandiose view of themselves that, like, their generation is the one generation. We are the world, and...
We are getting very, like, kind of off, though.
Yeah,
I'm
a
severe tangent.
But, all right, so back into this. One of the things I do like about the spiritual part of this and the self-realization is the part of self-discovery. And the question is moving from the what to moving to the why of why we do things. Why do we feel the way we do? Why do we think the way we do? I like that part of it. I'm a big why person, and it drives my wife crazy because I'm always like, but why? And
You're
when you really,
I get it.
There you go. So when you break all that down to think about why you do the things you do, then you start to question, do I need to do it? Is it better for me? Does this drive me towards my goal or away from my goal? And it really helps you put things into perspective.
Mm-hmm. And that's another point where Chris and I's self-awareness ties in.
All right. So also in the process of self-realization, we have self-love, which our man Sean did a little bit of today.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
gotta be
So
comfortable just kind of being with yourself and being happy with that and being able to just kind of, I don't know, enjoy your own company.
oh yeah. So learning to stop punishing ourselves, start nurturing our inner child, and exercising a greater self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-forgiveness. And the self-forgiveness is a big thing, at least for me. I know I hold my faults to myself very harshly, and
Yeah.
I try to be a better person, and I recognize my faults at all points and times. Some immediate, some it takes me a little bit longer to get to that point. But I am one of those persons who, when I've done something wrong, I won't allow myself to do anything that makes me happy, and I kind of hold it against myself and kind of like self punishing, I guess. Like I'm not gonna buy that thing or go enjoy that thing that I want to do because I know I should have done this and I didn't do it, or those types of things. So and
Part
there's
of
a
that is
balance.
self accountability, though.
Yeah, there's a balance with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
think
you can hold yourself accountable, it's one thing, but like punishing yourself is, I don't know, it just depends on how far
for
you take
sure
it.
it depends on how far it goes. It depends, like there's a lot of factors in that, but I believe that, and I've said this on other podcasts, people are using this sort of thing as an excuse to just be sucky and to like not, they're just like, oh, it's, I have to focus more on me and I need to make sure I'm this and I'm happy and I'm sort of thing, as a way to like disregard other people and their feelings and their emotions and their experiences. So I agree with it, but I will always do that caveat that like, if you are using it as basically an excuse to not actually be better and to be whatever, then I'm not with it, which I think happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said,
It's
there's a balance to all of this. You can't overdo it. You can definitely overdo it, and then you just become that selfish prick that everybody's gonna call you out on. You're like,
yeah.
that guy just doesn't care about anybody. He's always doing things for himself. And I asked him for help, and he's like, "Screw you! I gotta go watch a movie because I need some me time, and my
Mm-hmm.
car's on the side of the road, and I'm out here bleeding." And he said, "No, I got to finish watching the Matrix." So, uh,
Well,
Feel
you,
bad,
that's also making like, that's referring to like big time stuff that I think anybody would judge somebody for, like, wow, you're gonna leave me stranded. But I'm talking about just like basic courtesy. Like I don't know what it is. I've had this discussion with my mom before. Like, courtesy to me is like, so like thinking about the other people that would be impacted by the decision you're making and respecting, like if you're screwing their time, if you're screwing their effort, if you're screwing, those things are important to me. Almost to the same as like leaving somebody in that sort of situation, because then they'll just use that. It's like, oh well, I was there for you and you needed that, car pickup. But it's like, yeah, but you don't ever actually consider me outside of that in a day to day. You're not a hero because you did the one thing. If you didn't do anything else and you neglected and you didn't take into account, like, great, you showed up and you changed the tire for me when I was stranded, and that's amazing, but you still did all, like, it doesn't, that's my point. Yeah.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah, I will say that I think, to get back to the subject, the self love thing, that's for some people that's gonna be the hardest part. I know for me, bro, I'm kind of sometimes on board with it. Like I know I need to, but I can't stand. It is incredibly hard for me to ever say anything nice about myself. It physically bothers me when other people say nice things about me. I can't fucking stand it. Like it literally like repulses me. I'm part of the old way that we did the lieutenant interviews. You had to literally have a thing called it's kind of like an interview, but essentially it's you selling yourself. It's like convince them why they should promote you, why you are the shit. And you have to sit there and be like, well, I'm the baddest badass to ever exist, and I've done all these great things, and these are my super great qualities and all these other things. And I'm like, well, Jessica was like, you're gonna have a really hard time with that. And I was like, yeah, I am. But luckily, they took that part out. I didn't have to do that today. Sean doesn't have to love himself. No, but like, it is very tough. It is very, very tough. And I know, like, so a lot of people, or that might be listening, if that's you, we got to get over that, because I mean it's not just you that affects. Like it really does start to spill over into other things and affects your relationships and stuff like that when you don't really value yourself at all. So fix yourself, okay? I'm not
I
going to go
think
into all that
the
right now.
important part is
Well,
doing both. Acknowledging the good things about you, but not ignoring the bad stops you from being
No,
arrogant and cocky.
that's not part of that at all.
No,
yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I think that is part of it. Is if you should accept the good about you, and you should acknowledge the things that you have. But I'm saying that, like, the extremes of it are if you do that, but not the other side,
Well,
you're
we're in the step system we're
narcissistic
in.
and whatever. On the
Self-awareness
other side
is
of it,
step one.
like it's
Yeah.
on the other side of it, you're going in the other direction, right? So
Yeah. So with after that, after self-love, you've got self-transformation. And this is when you start to take in account to all the things you've done previous, and you start to change who you are, change your ego, and start to change who you are as a person, kind of, I guess, the butterfly emerging from the cocoon kind of thing. So you've dealt with your flaws, you started to accept yourself, and now you're ready to make those changes. And this is I think a real big stage, and I think a lot of people trip up on it and get stuck on this step because when it's time to make that change, it's hard. Change is not easy.
You
And-
can know everything you need to do, but actually doing it, that's a different thing.
I'd like
Yeah.
to know how strict the ordering is on this list.
It's
I would
just
take
a list on the
I would take it with
I
a
mean,
grain of
just
salt.
whoever wrote this list, I'd like to know how strict they are with the order we do things, because I can make changes in my life. Doesn't mean that I love myself while I'm doing it.
I mean, it's still something
guy-
you need to do though.
Like,
It's
I hate
something-
this guy, but I guess I'm gonna take care of him.
Yeah, pretty
But-
much.
But maybe changing yourself will help you love yourself.
Changing yourself is an act of self-love.
There you go.
Now Chris
I
is like,
do
well, I'm
to
never
s-
changing
I
anything.
do like to skip steps.
yeah,
It's
there you
true.
go. Or you just move 'em around.
This guy's
you know?
never watched a cutscene in his life.
I was about to say, yeah, you just skip cutscenes and keep it moving.
Video game cutscenes are useless.
You're rubbed off on me, by the way. I've started skipping some myself, and I'm like, I don't need to know that. Tell me
Oh
what.
my
Tell me what to
goodness.
do. Tell me what to do.
Oh my goodness.
I reinstalled World of Warcraft last night, and they,
Oh, Lord.
I logged in. They were doing like the big new opening cutscene for the new expansions that I haven't played. Skipped them.
This guy.
No
I only
idea
did
what
World
he's
of
going
Warcraft
into.
for like 2 years. I don't give a shit. Someone's
Oh
dead, I'm
man. All right. So the next step in this process is self mastery. And this is when you get really like domineering with the change that you've made and really sticking to them and really becoming the person who you're trying to be. And I guess aligning all facets of your life into becoming like the culmination. So that's a pretty huge step.
I feel like this
Um,
list is actually getting us to personally ascend to godhood.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what the next step is, my friend?
Become gods.
Self transcendence.
Self transcendence, dude.
We have transcended the human plane.
That's
We are
it.
now celestial.
And this one, I guess it depends on how you are with your faith or even just higher consciousness, but that's all up to your personal interpretation and how you are. I'm not going to tell anybody how to do this, and none of this is telling anybody how to do this, by the way.
This is
Side
just random
notes.
shit we found on the internet that we're
That's
just
it.
talking about.
That's it. And then self-realization, which this whole podcast is about, is step 9. And it's letting go of ego, being centered, figuring out your place in the world and where you are after doing all the questioning of why you're doing what you're doing, learning to love yourself, making the changes to make yourself a better person. All of it comes to the culmination of this and your self-realization.
I want to reframe that.
Go for it.
Because I think that's where some people find an issue. When you say it like finding your place in the world, that's overwhelming.
It very much is.
It's
That's
that's
why it's
overwhelming.
step 9.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you had to do
Yeah,
the
you
other
create
8 steps. It's
there.
supposed
Like,
to get you there.
It shouldn't be overwhelming after step 8.
Yeah, no, it's
transcendent.
that people think
Self-transcendent.
they need that, and I think if you broke it down into context, being self-aware or letting your ego, go, or looking from without that, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, in the situations you are in at that moment is more important. That's easier to do, and it's more important. I don't need to know my place in the world, this grand, whatever. Like, no, like, what does that even mean, first of all? And two,
Yeah.
it's like, no, I need to do it in the moment, in the place that I am. Right? That's where I need to step back and be able to look at things without my own ego. And that's where I need to, and I think that's something I've really tried to do for a while now. Is like, even when I'm in those spots, no matter how anybody else interprets me, I know internally that I am literally telling myself, like, okay, what's the other side of this? What if I wasn't involved in this regard? What if somebody else saw this? How would they, like, those are all things that I start to think about instead of just like my brain, my situation, my point of view, is to really try to see things more holistically. I think the problem is that as you do that, you ruffle more people's feathers.
Well, you did make a key point here, and that is listed here. It's the moving past the sense of me, mine, and I am, and that's how you get to that point. So you pretty much hit the nail on the head there with that self realization. And like you said, I think it is good to put it in the context of your particular situations that you're in. It's not about I'm a collection of atoms living in this part of the
Yeah,
cosmos.
I feel like that just makes it so grand. Like, what is my place in this speck of dust in the grand cosmos? Like, who knows, mother? We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like that like to me the final stage, or I guess would be more of just being completely comfortable with yourself. There is no ego. You match the values you've set out for yourself. And to me, like that's, I don't know. I can't imagine wanting anything else beyond that.
So that brings me to our next question here. Do you think that can ultimately be achieved?
Maybe.
I don't think it's like a final thing. Again, I said this earlier. I don't think you reach a point where you're like, I am enlightened. And
I'm
like,
done.
that's it. You hit the end of the road and you're like, all right, sick. Like,
I feel like once you start thinking about it like that, it's you're
You're ready.
taking away like your like humanity,
Are
right?
you ready?
Yeah.
You're ready for death at
You're
that
just
point,
kind of
man.
taking away the whole point of being a person.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I know
not
we're
necessarily.
talking about all this like, you know, arrogance is bad, having an ego is bad, but it's just part of being a person. You know, just having an ego and being confident about something doesn't make you a bad person.
But you have to have the control of that ego.
It's keeping the ego in check.
Yeah. Being able to separate
letting
yourself
it-
from it. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that, okay, if you achieve we keep throwing around enlightenment. I think it's a poor word for it, but like, you know, this self-realization, you finally hit that goal and you feel like you've done it. It doesn't mean like you're at death or anything like that. Because what does a master of their craft do? They teach it to other people, right? So like just because you've realized like I have achieved all of the values I wanted, or all the goals and all the things I set up for myself, doesn't mean that like you can, okay, I guess I'll just put my arms across my chest and roll my eyes, you know, back and just be dead now. Like there's still a lot. At that point, you have so much to offer the world. And you could still just continue to do everything you did before that point, just with a different perspective and a different view on life.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean,
I think it's just that I just don't like the whole this definition of self-realization.
All right. Well, here's another definition for you. It is the the activation of one's full potential, talents, and abilities.
Is that any better?
I just feel like this is all so deep and grand, and it's ridiculous.
okay, well, I mean, give us like your take or thoughts on it, then, because I agree to an extent, because it puts it on this like crazy like pedestal, whatever. Which I do think it's something you should be going for and things. But I also do think that again, you put it like it's this thing. So, what is your actual like? What is your way of viewing it that isn't so whatever to you?
Grandiose.
I think it's super simple, and it's just realizing in that moment who you are, what you can and can't do, what your strengths and your weaknesses are, how you can fix all of this or change something about yourself. It's just self-realization is just knowing who you are as a person in the world at this point in time.
Yeah.
But
I think
so
on a
right,
It's not so much knowing your place in the world or any of that
Well, yeah.
shit. It's just simple.
Yeah, I
It's just
think most of us
who
aren't
am
really
I,
viewing
and
that.
I know
well,
who I
exactly, and that's
am,
yeah.
and I know what I can do to be a better version of myself.
So I think a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about things, achieving things and stuff like that, obviously like some of the discussion talked about like very grandiose terms of knowing your place in the universe and all this stuff that like we don't really give a crap about. Um but like do you not feel that there's like progression to be made? Like when you say like right now, I know what my strengths and weaknesses are at this point in time. I know, things about myself and stuff like that. Like I feel like I have a pretty good idea, but like I said earlier, 6 months from now, I'm gonna realize I had no idea. So like I have to be part of my self-awareness, my self-realization is knowing that I don't know anywhere near as much about myself as I think I do. So there's that self-awareness, self-realization. That's the difference for me. It's like I'm self-aware of where I'm at right now, but I have not realized my full self of like who I want to be at this point in time. When I have achieved that, or like whatever the idea that I have for myself is my self-realization, that's my goal, versus like my awareness, which is like I know where my weaknesses are. I know that I have, these flawed emotions and things that I deal with, and what my strengths are, and that sort of thing. So like that's kind of where I draw the line. Like awareness and realization are very different things to me.
I think in the end, it comes down to just being a better person, being a better human, and you can take that however you want to take that, and but just knowing that you are who you are, you're one person, you can only do so much, and then just doing the best that you can as that one person, not being a crap person, taking care of yourself so that way you can be better for other people and just helping people out. But to do that, you have to know, like you said, I've done things wrong and I can do better and I need to do better. And I think that's pretty much what it is. Just knowing you can do better and trying to do better. And I think that's for honestly is like a simplest I can make it, at least from my understanding of it.
That's
But
what it is, right? It's all different perspectives, and everyone's gonna view it differently. It's a very kind of like it's just not a very solid subject. Like it is, there's so much interpretation on an individual level that like we're all gonna have different views.
I mean, it's right in
We
the
all
name,
had different
dude. It's self. Okay.
yeah, it's definitely
like
it's
we all had different ideas before we even stepped to the table here to record this. Apparently, so
Yeah.
like everyone's gonna have a different view, a different, everyone who listens to this is gonna, like they might agree with one thing I say, but then hate everything else, and they might like a couple things Steven says, but hate everything else, and they like a couple, more, and that's just the way it's gonna be. Like everybody's gonna have their own view on it.
So do you think we can make other people self-aware?
Oh Lord, we try.
I think you can. I think you can provide
help.
people with the tools to help them along.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can point things out, and it's
Yeah.
ultimately it's up to them.
You can't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can do it directly, and sometimes you can continuously bring up things like being courteous to others when those people are around.
When you look at it from a personal, like, you could definitely, other people can, like, I feel like other people can make me more self-aware, for sure.
I think we can all make that happen to some aspects.
I mean, so when I put this on the list, and so I have an example of that, and it was something that I mentioned in my speech at my brother's wedding, was he pointed out that, I have like this hero complex thing. Like, I want to be the hero. I want to whatever. And I had a habit of when I would do these things, when I would push that person's car out on the street, or I would stop and do this, or I would whatever, I make a post about it. I would let people know. And he basically made me think, are you doing it for the reactions and the pat on the back and the whatever, or are you doing it because it's the right thing? And that was like a self-awareness moment. And I knew that I did it for both reasons. I did it because I wanted to, and it makes me feel good to help other people, and I want to be a hero. But I also liked that if other people knew I did it, I got recognition and I got praise for it, right? But it was recognizing that and being able to want to like look at it, see it, and understand it better, and then maybe to do less of it. So I knew where I was still grounded. So it's not that I've never now posted anything positive that I've done or accomplished, but I don't do it nearly as often. There are things that go completely under the radar, nobody knows about or hears about, and there are also times where I do share it because I want to. And it doesn't change the fact that I did that thing, and it's not the reason I did that thing, right? So that's an example of a time it has helped me. And there, of course, are plenty of times that I've also tried to point out things to people. And
So
be
to answer
honest
the
with
question,
stuff.
yes, I can make you more self-aware.
All right, so yeah, I do think that we could help people out on that path. Like I said, we kind of already went into that, but yeah, like I said, helping people become aware of things, but definitely, like we said, approach does matter. Um,
I would say
So-
just know when to quit. Don't spend all your time trying to help someone. Don't put an infinite amount of effort trying to make someone a better person.
No, I mean, it's
There are
because it's
people
their
out there
self,
that
right?
because there are people out there that are shit people,
yeah, what you
and
say?
they
Yeah,
don't want to change
yeah, that's true too.
because they're the ways they look at things. That's the way they're going to look at things. You're not going to change their minds. So don't put in too much effort into trying to change people into some better version just to please yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's also the stance. Whereas like other people have the complete opposite of nobody is like for like a way to make it more grand than it is, but like nobody is incapable of redemption, sort of thing, right? People definitely have that approach as well, where you're like, draw your line in the sand, and if they get, they won't budge, like leave them behind. Other people are like, no, every person is worth saving, sort of, sort of thing.
Let
Again,
'em
that's very
save themselves.
grandiose, but
So the
So-
wording on it is actually what things can you do to help you on the path. So it's more of like what do you need to do?
Oh, for
So
yourself.
I would say that a lot of it's self-education. People aren't going to help you with everything. It's just figuring yourself out. So personally, I recommend reading the Stoics. It's kind of their whole thing. And like I said, self-education, self-reflection. That's going to be the number one thing. Like other people can assist you, and you can learn a lot from other people. I know I have. I try to learn something from everybody I know. Like there's a quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but like it says that no man is so ignorant that I can't learn anything from them.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, that was Chris back way back in the day.
yeah.
So like it's just you've got to constantly be working on yourself and like educating yourself, lots of self-reflection, exploring, different things. That's kind of how I go about it, and how I think that's just what's been successful for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy for people to realize and admit what is or what's like negative or what's wrong with you. What issues, problems you have with whether it's personality or whatever. But it's not easy for people to admit that they have problems.
Yeah, I think the first step is acknowledging that everybody has problems.
Oh yeah.
None of us are perfect. We all have our flaws, and not expecting anybody to be perfect, but especially yourself, and knowing just fixing what you can and taking it step by step. Like I said, for me, I don't think this process or this journey is ever going to end. There's always going to be something I'm going to be working towards or trying to do better at, or either for myself or for the people around me. I've made a lot of changes here recently, and there are more to come. But definitely, I do think a lot of outside influence helps me as well. For the married guys on this podcast, I know your better halves, as we call them. They've all helped us become better at some way or another, and helped us with that realization of, hey, you may not know you do this, but you do this, and then you start taking a step back, and you're like, okay, well, now that you brought it to my attention, I'm gonna try to do better a little bit. So it's definitely understanding ourselves, and then outside influence is definitely a good push as well. So do you guys think you can lose self-realization?
I think
Yeah. I think you
I
can
mean-
lose anything. If you fall off the path and you start going down a totally different place in life, which anyone can do, even the mightiest and most brave and kind of centered people can fall off the horse and go down a complete, gutter route. So I mean, it's possible for anyone.
to me that's not losing it though. because it's an ever flowing. Again, I don't view it as like you reach this ultimate point, you're enlightened, and then you like fall from enlightenment.
So
now,
I guess
like,
a better way to put it is like, can you stray from the path? Which,
yeah, absolutely. But that's part of, I think, the journey as well at times is like, if you learn from it, if you then grow from it and become whatever, then dude, that's part of the journey. It's not an excuse to intentionally jump off, but like that's also if you learn, it is a chance to learn and improve and come back better. So absolutely you can. I think if people who think that they never stray or never mess up or whatever, like those are from books and movies and whatever, that's not human.
Oh yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
I don't think it's something that you can lose.
What was that? I didn't.
It's just not something that you can lose at any point.
Yeah, I think definitely you can regress, but like you said, learn from it, keep moving forward. All right, so this wraps up our episode on self-realization. I hope you learned something about us and yourself today. And as always, you can find all of our social medias on the BeHonestManPodcast.com website. There you can find our streaming sites for YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everything you need to know. And until next time, be honest, man.